see our timekeeper is not here. If you volunteer a task and then you disappear, we feel your absence more directly. Who will be our timekeeper today? What time are we supposed to end? It's a little bit after half past 6. Quarter past. Okay. At 7 exactly, stop me wherever I am so that we can discuss a bit more rather than just having a one-way bash. I would want you to hear, or rather to say what you know about blended families and their challenges. All right, blended families. What is a blended family? Anyone who wants to share with us? What is a blended family? If all don't know, at least one couple, the couple that put the topic. Elder Mkubona, what is a blended family? What if the colors don't blend? There is a step somewhere. Thank you, thank you. This is actually a North American terminology. It's not there in British English. But it's families consisting of a couple and their children from this and all previous relationships. So there is a couple, and from that couple there are children. And those children are not just from this relationship, from other relationships. And couples may have had children out of wedlock. These children who are now in this current marriage may be children obtained out of wedlock, either while still married in this relationship, or before marrying, or in a previous relationship. They can also be couples that have had children from a previous marriage that ended because of either death or divorce. So there is a variety of blended families. There are more blended families today than in the past. There can be couples that may have adopted children. So all these are different types of blended families. There are more blended marriages today than it was in the past. Why do you think that is so? Although in the Bible, even as far back as in the Old Testament, there are quite a number of blended families in the Bible. But why is it that we have more blended families today than in the past? Yes.
Probably because the divorce rate now is very high.
Thank you. Divorce rate is very high. Promiscuity is very high. And the attitude of society generally towards marriage is changing. People simply cohabit. And when, it's not convenient anymore, they move on. And when they move on, they had created children already. So we are living in a very, very complicated society. And that is why blended families become important. So death is also a major cause of having blended family. Not that we are dying more now than in the past, but that the population has increased. And as a result, while death rate may be the same, but the number of deaths have increased. Now, blended families have to learn to cope with all the challenges. Marriage in a normal family is already a challenge. Now, when it comes to a blended family, it becomes even more of a challenge. So we as a family, we as a church family, we need to understand this and be sympathetic to those who are in blended families. Provide the support for them and understand their pain and cries. Before I have come into family ministries, I never gave it even a little thought what blended families might be going. But after being in family ministries, reading and listening to people and so on, these are people who have many challenges, and church support is very much needed. Now, having said that, how many here from those definition of blended family, you either come from a blended family or you have a blended family? Can I just see by show of hands? It could be also that you married and you had children before marrying out of wedlock. And now you came into this marriage, and there are all these attachments you came with. Okay, so it's quite a sizable number of people to whom this topic is relevant. Now, it's interesting that I don't think Windhoek Central has ever had a topic on blended family. And by show of hands, it's probably 30 to 40% of our members who either come from blended families or are in a blended family themselves. And yet the church has not discussed this. For example, Windhoek Central. I want to thank you that you were able to think about the demographic of your church and realize that this is a very important topic. And even if you don't come from blended family, you need to be aware of the challenges that fellow church members are going through, and wherever you are able to support, please do. For cases of death and divorce, experience show that it is really important to allow healing to take place. Some of us are not in blended family, but there is no guarantee that you will never have a blended family or become a blended family, because a spouse might die any time. And when the spouse dies, you will have to consider, should I marry or not? And for me, that's a very dreaded situation, where a spouse has gone, you are left with the children, and you have this decision to make, that shall I marry or shall I not? And there are a lot of challenges either way, whether you decide not to marry or whether you decide to marry after a spouse has died. It's really a challenge. But then, if you will decide to go ahead, experience shows that allow healing to take place before you jump into an intimate relationship. There is pain and hurt, and when you go into a problem, into a relationship, you may carry those pains and hurt and become a real serious burden to the new spouse that you are marrying to. You might even be crying all the night, and this new partner has to babysit you because of your pain in the past. But just imagine, this is a wife, but you are crying for another wife who has gone. Just think of the burden you are giving this new wife. So it's very important that you allow healing to take place before you move on to another relationship. Family members in such cases should realize that the past has contributed in making them what they are. Yet there is a future to live. And the most important thing is to disengage the disagreeable things of the past and to focus on the current and what you can make the best out of. So, and that's not an easy thing. Somebody you loved, somebody you shared intimate things with has departed. And yet you have to forget those things and move on. It's not an easy thing. Now, this can be a difficult process. It will have a lot of pain. There might be even misunderstanding. But you need to recognize that if you will make a serious commitment and effort, there is no reason why a blended family shouldn't be a happy, good family. But we should emphasize that family does not come together and that everything just works out automatically. There will be an effort to be made. There is a need for more dedication, visible love, complete trust in God, and faith that tomorrow will still be good. Now, a family is what you want it to be, not what the world deems normal. So you will hear many people talk a lot. We had, I don't know if somebody know Pastor Muhando, the wife passed away, and immediately, it was actually in a matter of months after the wife passed away, he remarried again. And people started talking. Why? The wife just died. Could it be there was a relationship already? You know, when people want to dig on others' affairs, a lot of talk. But what I'm saying is, don't be led by what people will say or not say. As long as you have faith in God and you are sure your moves are checked by what God guides you, you need not worry and use the world as the standard to live by. Remarriage with a new mate and a family can, for many, feel like a very great blessing, but there is need to be careful. There are issues of abuse and neglect, especially for the children of the previous marriage, and it's very important to consider all that in a blended family. Often, for the other dear people, the blended family can be a great pain. In other words, who are involved in a blended family. The children of the previous marriage, the current children, yourself, the new spouse, the family of the old spouse. You know, do they disappear? They are still there. Just because your wife passed away and now you have remarried doesn't mean you will forget the parents of the other spouse. And then you have your own parents also. Becomes a lot complicated. And when your wife or husband departed, maybe the parents are aging and you were the breadwinners for those parents. Now their child is gone. You have married and will you leave them alone? Those are questions that arise, and as a result, these can be a crucible of unexpected pain. Now, everybody looks into this new family, despite its challenges, that there will be love, peace, intimacy, and security. And this is what we should look always as a blended family. In these new relationships, again, they can result in loneliness, anxiety, despair, disconnection. Again, even when you married, sometimes expecting that these will disappear. Actually, that marriage may make these come even to a greater extent. Now, why is this so? Why is it that there are so many challenges? We are going to look at these challenges one by one and try to explain why. Because a blended family is actually an intricate basket of so many relationships and challenges. And these come in addition to normal challenges of a normal family. So we examine the following challenges of blended families. One, finance. To many blended families, finance will be a problem. Why? Because during the breakup, if it's out of divorce, there were some assets that were divided. And what used to be a full budget will be cut into half now, and you will have to leave. Properties that you had to be sold. And maybe there is a mortgage that's still to be paid. One party may end up paying that mortgage by themselves. So there are a lot of challenges. Then there are children that are coming from that relationship. They may be living with this family, or they may not be living in this family, but in your budget and finances, they have to be also given a portion. There might be some legal expenses to pay if you went through a divorce, and lawyers these days are not very cheap. So blended families will have a lot of challenges. And as I say, if it's an issue of death, there are parents of the previous wife or husband that you may need to take care of. And all these put pressure in the finances that you have. Now, blending couples and their children. If I have children from a previous wife, and now I marry, there is a serious problem between the wife I am marrying and the children from the previous relationship. They used to be used into the house as theirs. When their mother is there, they can do anything. Now there is somebody who is called a mother, but it's actually not their mother.
And when they come at home in the fridge, things have been bought by another, not their mother they used to. Soon they begin to feel the home is not theirs. And the spouse who have children is torn in between. When he gives more attention to this newly found wife or husband, the children will be looking and say, so he didn't quite love our mother or our father. The more you are attached to this new one, the more you are attached to your children, this new wife or new husband will also feel like you are grouping together against him or her. And so there are real challenges between the children and this incoming mother or father, whatever the case may be. Scars and hurt from the past, if that happened, because in fact there will always be scars and hurt. If you are a blended family because you had children out of wedlock, if those children come and stay with you, their mother will still have a grudge that this father had children with me but never married me. So there are always scars and hurt. If it was out of death, as we have said before, you are still healing from the death of the person you loved. And now you are entering into a new relationship. The children are also paining because they lost their mother or their father. So there are a lot of scars and hurts, and people who have been hurt are very difficult people to love. Because you may try to love them, but anything that sparks a reminder of the previous will bring the pains and a reaction that may not be expected. Reasons for remarriage. Now, there is a paradox that most people divorce for the same reason that they get married. Okay, let me explain. You marry the second marriage because you feel lonely. And when you get married, this new wife or husband has children. And they end teaming up and make you feel lonely again. It's better to be lonely alone than to be lonely in a place where you are supposed not to be lonely. And so you married because you wanted to avoid loneliness, but instead you go and find it again. And that can be very, very traumatic. Children of either parent may resent the new spouse. I think we mentioned a bit of that. In fact, if the children you got are still young, there will immediately arise a problem. When this, who is not their natural parent, starts to discipline them, then it becomes a problem. You know, even us who are in normal marriages, if one spouse beats the children, sometimes you sit and you feel like running and holding her and say, hey, that's enough now. Now that's children that are from both of you. How much more children that are not from that person, and that person is beating them? The children will have resentment, and the natural parent will also have resentment. And that might end even in a serious quarrel. When it's children that came out of divorce, usually there is competition between parents. We divorced, the children are with me. I will try to show them I am such a nice father, and that their mother I left is such a rascal, and As a result, I end spoiling them up. Now, while spoiling them, I am having a new wife who is seeing these children are being spoiled. She wanted to say you are spoiling them, but she sees by saying that she will be touching fire. And so there would be serious tensions in the home. We talked about the other parents have a continuing influence in their children. Okay? So those parents there, if it's a divorce, their mother is there, their father is there. But while there, he's influencing these children who are here. So it's a marriage that has a third party. And usually, we have just let our daughter go. And we discuss always with the wife. And we are saying, if you have problems, we should not be the first ones you come to. We would so much wish. But we don't want them to have a third party in their marriage. Let them have their own problems and solve them themselves. But in blended families, you can't avoid a third party. There is always somebody remotely out there who has serious interest in family issues here because his or her children are also in this blended family. So as most marriages end with hurt, the chances for this poison to leak to the children, even with the best intentions to have, is very high. Then there are legal battles. We talked about that. After divorce, there are bills to pay. Maybe the custody of children will still be there. Maybe the children stay 2 weeks there, 2 weeks here. Man, it can be difficult. It can really be difficult. Time, eh? All right, I will end there. They're sharing children, their ex-spouse relationship, parents' poor loyalty to children, effects of prayer experience. We mentioned a bit of that. Comparison with former spouse. You know, comparisons are always unfair. Because when you compare, you only take the good side of the person who is gone. Where this person is better than the previous one, you don't see. But where this person is not good as the previous one, you see that very quickly. And that can be very unfair. Now, despite this, we still can have good, successful, happy, blended families. Love deeply. Deeply love one another continually, showing affection, commitment, esteem, even when encountering all this pool of problems. Be flexible. Flexibility is needed. Don't be rigid. Be flexible to also look at the need of the other person. Where there is need to change, change. Respect your mate's ideas, even when your instinct and past cultural conditioning calls for you to be stubborn. Even in normal marriages, stubbornness can be a big problem. Set boundaries. For example, don't talk about the previous relationship with the current spouse. It hurts that spouse. So set boundaries that I cannot discuss this and that, or I cannot do, or I cannot compare this one with the other one. It will be unfair. Set boundaries and focus on having a worthy family. It's possible. Have a positive attitude. Your new relationship and family is worth all the love and goodwill and sacrifice and investment that you are making in. Thank you. I end up there, and it's time for discussion. You can take up any item. You can share your experience. You can postulate situations. It's time for discussion. Since we have a number of people who are coming from blended families, you can share some of the experiences you have gone, challenges and how they have been overcome. There are quite a number of us that may have been raised from a stepmother. I don't know whether what I went through is a blended family. Elder Mkumonda, when I was young, I was staying with my brother. He was married. Is that a blended family? Yes, so I have an experience a bit. Okay, let us hear your experiences, issues, and so on. Yes, yes. And that's good because he is a lawyer. He can speak from different angles.
I actually have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Polygamous marriages, where all the wives are alive, maybe 4 or 5, they all have kids. Does that fit in your sense of a blended family?
Yes, yes. I mean, yes. Blended family comes in when you have to deal, family issue have to deal with people who may not be biologically born by this particular wife or that. So yes, because I don't know, in some of the polygamous marriages, the first wife rules even the other wives. And in that sense, she will have to preside on issues that relate to children of others. I don't know. Yes.
I think because of the decision that a parent makes or a father makes can be influenced by another spouse. Or say, for example, if my mother, my father has 3 women, for example, maybe a decision that he makes on us could be influenced by
the other wife.
The other wives.
Especially the youngest.
Yes. So the spending, etc., and yeah, those type of stuff. So finance, of course, becomes a big issue. No, my parents divorced when I was quite young, so I had to grow up with my mom, a mother that was not. So, but then you can see, I mean, how she was treating her children versus us, and it was quite difficult and complicated, and it was a lot of. In fact, I started when I was very young. The resentment was quite big. Either for my father or for my stepmom, etc. Those type of stuff, because of what I thought, I wasn't getting. So, yeah, but it's tough. It is tough.
It's very tough, and you are saying something that we mentioned in passing. In these, who suffers most, you think? Is the children. But who gets most attention? It's the adults. They discuss their issues. They tell each other. But the child may not have anywhere to say the hurt and the pain. All right, I saw a hand over there. Oh, my wife first, then.
No, I'm not the wife. Okay, I have a question. How do you deal with the blended family you hadn't planned for? Like, for example, a child is born when we are married, or maybe my husband confesses after many years that he actually has a child. How do you deal with that situation now?
Real issues are coming now. Boom, you're married, and the husband comes and tells you, I have a child, not with you, from outside this marriage. How do you handle that? Yes.
I want to make it even worse. It's out of a real situation where somebody was married happily to a lady, and then the lady disappeared with another man. So there were children, and then he married another lady, and that was also a very happy marriage, until the issue came at who's going to inherit the house. And as much as he loves his second wife and his children from her, he said, no, my tradition says my firstborn from my first marriage is going to be the owner of this house when I die. No matter how much I love you and how much I love our children here, the firstborn is going to be the owner of the house. And those children don't even know that there is someone else who is going to inherit the house.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I have a case of my sister. She had children outside wedlock. Then she got married to a husband who was actually my school friend. And he also came with his children. And he passed away. So my sister remained single, but with children. Now my sister has a son who was fairly older than these others that came with the husband. The husband had this big mansion, which when he died, their family agreed that it will be taken over by, my sister can take it. Now, having a son, naturally the son started taking over the property. Because being a female and so on, and there is a son, the son is now the one who is in command of the house. And now these children who came with the husband, they're not my sister's children, are very resentful. They are saying, this house belonged to our father. But now, it's this other one who is running it. And it's still a very serious and sensitive issue that is being discussed. That if these are given that house, they cannot be given. My sister is still living. But while she is still living, the one who is able to look after the house is the son. But this son is not the son of the man who had the house. The other children are complaining. So things can really be very complicated when you come to blended family. But then, in these situations, what should we do? Let's start with the easier one. You just heard. Your ladies, help us here. The husband come and say, I have children out of the wedlock. What do you think is the best way to handle that? It might be before marriage, it might be while he still married with you. How do you handle that? And we are only looking at the man's side. Suppose it's the woman who suddenly it becomes apparent that there was a son or a daughter somewhere before marriage. Now the son and the daughter is surfacing. How do you do it? Thank you. Use a mic so that we hear you loud and clear.
I just talk, okay. My mixed family is that my father came with 2 children and my mother came with 2 children. And I was born after the 2 of each side. What I have realized, how people can handle this depends on their culture. Mostly also the culture plays a role. Because it depends on how they accept. Because I know in my culture, or Shuambo culture, usually they accept. It will be difficult for us young ones, but like my mom's them age, they accept. That's how it was. So it's something to do with culture, and then again, if you're a Christian, it can help a lot. So it's difficult to say she shouldn't accept. It's difficult to say he should, maybe what happens if the mother or the father of that child is no more? What do you do with that child? So it's a very complicated issue. But if you're a Christian and your culture is different from other people, it might work, because it worked in some cases that I know.
Thank you.
The mother accepted the child.
Yeah, that needs a lot of grace. There is a need to separate things and move in stages. One is there is a sin issue. This person committed a sin. So the first thing is, what are you going to do with your God? Let it not be me first. Let it be this person and his or her God. And then there is a forgiveness issue. Now, forgiveness for Christians is not a choice, it's a must. And you recite the Lord's Prayer. I always shiver when people say, let's pray the Lord's Prayer. Because in it you say, forgive me as I have forgiven. You even use the past tense, as I have forgiven others. You know, so forgiveness to a Christian is not an option. But forgiveness doesn't mean things will continue the same. Okay? So now that will be the aggrieved part to make a decision. Okay? And that decision, we cannot make it for you. What one would advise is, when you are told something that shakes you to the core, don't rush to take a decision. Stay calm, spend some days in prayer, and in the calmness of your mind, take a decision. Remember also, there is heaven to win and hell to shun. If really you loved one another, you will be concerned in your own salvation and in the salvation of the other person. I think in a nutshell, that's all I can say. Because that's what it is, if you will have to confront it. We have to take emotions away and look at it as Christians. Okay, it seems like the time is over. My wife and then my friend over there, and it will be Claire.
It's easy for a spouse, a new spouse in a relationship, to start scolding the children of the spouse whom she found or he found as people who are spoiled, or people who have no manners, or people who don't love her or him. It's very easy. And I think this is where we need to take caution that these people were used to a certain way of living. You are coming in, you are new, and they are hating. So we should really give them time to heal. And we should not jump to a conclusion of wanting to win their love. Because they are still getting used to you. They are studying you. They are saying what type of a person this is. This is now the time they become very observant. And everything you do is calculated and it means something to them. So we need to be careful as we are in such blended families. We should just really try to take time and also respect them. Respect their interests, help them to achieve their goals, but first study the temperature so that you tread softly.
Thank you. My brother.
Thank you. I think the other aspect is informing and really teaching the siblings or the children that are involved in the blended family. Because many a times the issue of inheritance is the one that often leads to maybe confrontations and even killings amongst siblings. So I may say that it's important for when parents are raising children to inform them that whatever we have here between you and my mother is for us, the two of us. We are giving you a future to work for ABCD. So utilize this, and more so giving them a skill which they can survive with, such that they are not really, yes, they are dependent, but for them not to be dependent forever, even to the extent that even on your grave they depend upon it, such that we've heard of some families or children which kill their parents in order to inherit large sums of insurance because their parents are worth more dead than living. So it's important also to learn about marital law. I had an opportunity to work for an organization which dealt with informing people on how to actually know marital law, who benefits what when they are married under section what and section what. Who gets to benefit this? Because a lot of people just go into these things without knowing who gets to benefit what in case ABCD happens. So I think that also is important for children especially, because at times as children we get this mindset that this is yours. This is yours. Before your parents even die, you are given the inheritance. To an extent that you start fighting over the inheritance instead of you starting your own thing. So maybe as Africans, if you can take that route, it can help us far much better. But again, with the blended families, if there's no family worship, or if the family is not grounded in God, it will obviously be difficult. There are different kinds of blended families. Even here in Africa, we've got polygamous families, the ones that we're common with. How do we live with each other in polygamous families? Because we have seen a lot of things happening. Witchcraft, you name it, all this and that, poisoning, killings, bloodbath. So as Christians, how do we tend to, which ways can we really navigate ourselves around these things? Because at times you can be a Christian who can be successful, but your siblings are not happy with that. So what are the things that we may do to forgive them in a way such that we are not caught in the same line, such that we will be all strangled with the same line?
Thank you. We can see we really have issues, and perhaps what we didn't have time to discuss is what can the church do to support these families. And elders, you have seen, you have a number of people from blended families or already in blended families. I think this discussion should continue to say what support is there that the church can offer to members who are here and who may be going through some of these challenges. Inheritance is a big issue, but tomorrow we are going to cover it in family finance. Thank you. Yes.
Just wanted to say, my brother touched on training. It's very important. We train even our children now and really try to make them understand when one spouse is gone, even our need for another spouse, we have to discuss with them. Because it doesn't stop very fast. It doesn't stop, or how can I say, it doesn't take a short time. It can go on and on and on until marriage, this hating. I was just watching a documentary for Princess Diana. How she, from her childhood, how her father broke up with the mother and he married to another woman, and the mother also eventually went to marry another man, and how she carried this hating into her marriage with Prince Charles. And you could see she was paining. She hated the father, she hated the stepmother, and she didn't sustain it. It didn't go through the marriage. She still stayed hating. And she was saying a lot of things that this really was not easy for her. At one point, she even slapped her father because she feels that he betrayed them. So we are dealing with a very important and difficult situation, and I think the church needs to take an opportunity to train our people to be open with these things and let them be discussed in the church and give a supportive hand.
I'm sure that there are some hidden questions that remained unasked and of course unanswered. But I think we are blessed as a church that we are still a family, and I encourage those that have those burning questions in their hearts to open up to somebody on our membership, particularly the Family Ministries Department. We are here for each other, and we can draw powerful resources. We can even call the Kiangi family in if needed be, or the Mudabeti family, or any other legal practitioner like Brother Brian. He will be more than happy to assist. Just for your information, Namibia has a very interesting law. I stand corrected by the legal practitioner, but there is a law that says that children born within the wedlock and out of wedlock, they have the same rights. Not many countries have such a law. For good or for bad, the law sometimes can be used. We look at it as a matter of last resort, but if we need to use the law enforcement, sometimes it's also something useful. Not everybody can be a Christian in the family. I mean, not a nominal Christian by label, but not everybody behaves as a Christian. Is Solem here to give us a song? Oh, no. Okay. I would like us to give a big amen to the Kiangi family, please. Amen. And I'll hand over to Lorraine, who is going to lead us in a song. 652, our theme song.